And there's 4 key components of a great voicemail. First, you tell them why you're calling. Second, you establish credibility right away. You've got 10 seconds to do this. Okay? The good work you've done for others. Let your clients speak for you. You know, yesterday I ran into Steve in the hall, and I didn't know who he was. But he was sitting beside, it's Dick, right? He was sitting beside Dick. And Dick told me everything about Steve. And I was like, wow! Right? Because it's so much more powerful when someone else talks about all the good things that you've done. Right? So establish credibility. Third, talk to them about what's in it for them. Why should they give up an hour or 2 hours of their time for you? All the good reasons why. And be concise. Talk in their language. And the fourth, the little hinge, is promise to send an email. And the reason we promise to send an email is that you can elicit help later on. Because you know, these Fortune 1000 companies, they have gatekeeping down to a fine art. It's like a vault, right? We don't hand out email addresses, but you can elicit support. There are ways, we've got lots of techniques in our book, but the easiest way is to ask the executive assistant to please help you. I've promised your decision maker, your boss, that I was going to send this email today. Very simple technique. So I armed her with a well-crafted voicemail that was rehearsed so it didn't sound like a script. She was enthusiastic. As much as she hated it, she was enthusiastic on the phone. She sent that well-crafted email. And then the third one, we had to get ready for this before she ever touched anyone, was the hand-to-hand combat. It's what we call live contact, right? The hardest part about getting these people to book a meeting with you is to get them on the phone. And you get sometimes one shot at this, right? And there are 10 common objections that we know about. We write about this. And a couple of them are, you know, I'm too busy. We have no budget. We have someone taking care of this. But remember, the phone is interrupted. So the first time you call someone and they're doing something else, they're checking email, they're not looking at the phone waiting for you to call, right? Their immediate impulse is to say no. So get ready for the no. It's not rejection. Expect it. This is just human nature. They're stressed out. They think you're trying to sell them something because you got to get to that 10 seconds of credibility, right? So we armed her and we role-played and we rebutted together. We wrestled, the hand-to-hand combat, right? You know, in her first week, she booked 4 C-level meetings for me. How do you think that made her feel? She still hated prospecting. Okay. But what happened to her self-esteem? It went way up. It went way up, right? And in 6 months, we had signed 102 targets into this loyalty program. And in 9 months, we had signed 200 Tier 1 accounts. So now that you're bulletproofed, it takes courage. It takes courage to do this kind of work. One of the scariest moments I ever had in business was meeting the senior vice president of Avon in New York. He was Mr. AAA. He was fast, he was smart, he was aggressive, and he was scary. You know, everybody was frightened of him. When they brought me up to his office, I saw him scoot out of the corner office across the room, and I literally saw people flinch in fear as he walked by. And then they put me into his office, and I had this big desk over me, and there he was, all clenched, and show me what you got, right? And he only gave me half an hour. And usually for these meetings, I had 2 hours usually. And I was fumbling my words. I was so nervous and intimidated by this man that I had already blown the first 7 minutes. Well, I had 23 left. What do I do? Well, I told him the truth. I said, Mr. AAA, you intimidate me. I can't do my job today and tell you all the good reasons why we can build your global intranet, because we've done this for Body Shop International. Well, I tell you, this meeting took a 360-degree turn for the better. Suddenly, Mr. AAA sat back, unclenched, relaxed, broke a smile, and said, why are you don't be intimidated by me, right? So anyway, I went back to Toronto. 10 minutes with that fellow, I had a huge champion. And he referred us to the manager who was in charge of the RFP, the request for proposal. This was a multi-million-dollar contract. And we had all our engineers to meet this manager and to receive the RFP. And by this point, I'm flying to Atlanta, and I get a call from my president. He tells us, you know, the meeting didn't go well. This manager decided he wasn't going to let us into this RFP because it was not enough time, and he knew how expensive it was to respond to an RFP, and that it wouldn't be worth our while. And I was flabbergasted, right? You know, Mr. AAA had referred me to this manager. We were into this RFP. So I decided I'd call Mr. AAA, and I left him a voicemail. I went something like this. I said, Mr. AAA, I just want to thank you so much for your time and for referring me to this manager. Regrettably, he is not allowing our company to participate because he feels that there's not enough time and it costs too much money. But I assured him that our president was willing to invest the time and money, and our engineers were ready to turn this RFP around. And I just want to thank you for the opportunity. Well, do you know, when you make friends at the top, that Mr. AAA scares everybody, right? Mr. AAA scares everybody. 45 minutes later in Atlanta, I get a call from my president, and he says, Christine, I don't know what you did, but we're in. We're in. So this kind of work takes a little courage, right? It takes a little courage, but it's like a muscle that you can grow, right? And with practice, it becomes really easy, and you can have a lot of fun helping a lot of people, right? And the other thing that's very important is perseverance. Perseverance. I tell you, you need a lot of perseverance out there. You know, the marketplace is cluttered. People are busy. They're inundated. How many emails do you get a day? Well, how many people work for you? A Fortune 500 company, they have thousands of people that work for them. They get thousands of email. They could barely have time to breathe, right? So you can't expect someone to call you back. They were just far too busy. It's your job to get them on the phone. One time, I left hundreds of voicemails for the CIO of Philip Morris, one of the largest packaged good companies in North America. And I was asked by my president to get a meeting with this CIO. In my book, there's a story called 64 Voice Messages, and that's how many voice messages I left the CIO over a 9-month period. Right? And when he finally took my call, he greeted me like an old friend. It was a one-way conversation, but he was my friend. And he was gracious, and he accepted and gave me a 2-hour time slot. Not only that, he invited me to have lunch at their executive offices on Park Avenue. I was like, yippee! I'm going to New York, and I'm having lunch. Well, the cab pulled up in front of the Philip Morris building, and my heart started pounding as this palatial place. I went in, introduced myself. They escorted me up to the executive offices. The CIO was waiting there for me, very gracious man, came out to greet me, and he informed me that 7 other directors had also wanted to come to this luncheon. You know that email I talked about earlier? Well, he had forwarded it to all his directors, and they all volunteered to come and meet me at this lunch. And that's the power of great email. So I walk into this formal dining room, and it's wood paneled, and it's just gorgeous. And I noticed that everybody was checking off what they wanted for lunch. There was these leather-bound menus on the table. Philip Morris, cigarettes, liquor, I mean, it was ashtrays. No one was smoking, though. So I quickly checked something off, and I noticed the CIO pushed a button. And this wood panel wall opens up, and the serving staff files in and picks up our menu silently. This was power, right? I have never seen anything like this. And then all heads turned on me. And I shared with them our vision of how we could help them build their global intranet. And I suppose the meeting went pretty well, because after the meeting, the CIO referred me to the CIO of Miller Beer, Kraft Canada, Kraft USA. I got 4 Fortune 500 companies with a little perseverance.